So this video is going to try and simply explain the methodology of the Implicit Association Task, or the IAT. So the IAT is a computerized task designed to measure the strength of implicit biases or associations that our participants might have. It achieves this by recording and comparing the reaction times of participants when responding to stimuli under specific conditions. In the case of the IAT, participants are required to categorize pictures of the target stimuli and evaluative words into appropriate groups. This is called dual categorization. So let's look at an example of an IAT where we're trying to determine if our participants have any bias towards dogs or cats. In block 1 of a typical IAT setup, participants will categorize pictures of the target stimuli into their respective groups, and on screen each group name will be assigned a response key. So in our example, dogs have been assigned the Q key and cats have been assigned the P key. So if our participant sees an image of a dog, we would expect them to respond with Q, as this corresponds to the correct group, rather than with P, because that would of course be incorrect. Similarly with a cat, we would expect them to respond with P rather than with Q. So that's how block 1 of the IAT would go. In block 2, we lose our dog and cat categories and they're replaced with good and bad categories. And now our participant would instead categorize evaluative words. So similar to block 1, if a good word appears, we would expect them to respond with Q. Whereas if a negative word were to appear, we would expect them to respond with P. In block 3, our good and bad categories are rejoined by our previous categories of dogs and cats. So now we have two categories sharing a response key. Our participants are still categorizing using Q and P, except now they're responding to both pictures and evaluative words within the same block. Participants would then repeat block 3, except this time the categories are counterbalanced, so cats now share a response key with good and dogs now share a key with bad. So what can this tell us about implicit bias? Well, if you remember, we've actually been recording the reaction time of each of our participants' responses. So the premise is that the closer or more strongly related the target is to the evaluative word in our memory, the faster it should be for us to categorize them using a shared response key. So for example, if on average it takes our participants 0.9 seconds to respond to dogs and good words when they share a response key, compared to the 1.4 seconds it takes them to respond to cats and good words when they share a response key, we might say that our participants have a stronger positive bias towards dogs than they do for cats. There's a lot to critique about the IAT and implicit measures in general, but hopefully this video has given you a rough idea of what the methodology of the IAT looks like.